Good afternoon, and welcome to this edition of ASEC Conversations. Today, we are pleased to have with us JoAn Scott, Managing Director of the NCAA Division I Men's Basketball Championship. At this time, I'll turn it over to our host, Ashley Hammett. Ashley?
Hello, JoAn. Thank you so much for joining us today. So you are responsible for one of the most high-profile, exciting, and anticipated events in the world. How has your perspective on that responsibility changed since you took over the position after the 2014 Final Four?
Well, first of all, it's good to be here. It's a great question to start off with. I think like anything in your first year, you don't really know the depth and the breadth of the responsibility. I think year one, I was drinking pretty much from the fire hose and trying to absorb it all. But once you get through it a couple years in, and now that I'm in, I think it's in my 7th year now, you kind of realize the pressure of the revenue side of the tournament for the NCAA and college athletics. And so you see that pressure. And then I think just the pressure of there's so many moving parts. We have, 8 different sites the first weekend, and making sure nothing goes wrong for television and the broadcast. And I think just for coaches and student athletes, they don't want anything to go wrong. It's their champion. It's everything they've been playing for. So I think what I've seen the most is there's a lot more that can go wrong than I imagined in year one. There's a lot of it's a well-oiled machines, but there's a lot of moving parts.
How difficult was the decision to cancel this year's men's basketball championship due to the COVID-19 virus?
Well, the NCAA created a COVID advisory council kind of committee. They were the ones that were giving us the medical advice, and they are medical experts, and includes a former Surgeon General Vivek Murphy, includes some folks from Emory, just really experts in the field. And so they were advising us not just on men's basketball, by the way, it was women's basketball, it was all sports. We had a lot of championships going on this in March. And so we were taking the advice of the advisory committee, as much as the men's basketball committee did a vote, and the Board of Governors is really the one that makes the final vote for the NCAA upon advisory of the medical advisory committee. So I think it was a little bit of surreal, and we all kind of looked at each other like, did that just happen? But again, just relying on the medical advisory committee is where we just put all of our faith in them. And and again, all championships, not just men's basketball, were then canceled.
How do you think that the 2020-2021 season is going to shape up with the continuing effects of the virus?
At this time, we've got a working group on playing and practice seasons. At this time, we're scheduled just as in the past. We're moving ahead just like we have in the past. And, right now we're planning that everything's a go. I think for us, we'll have the fall championships, and we'll have the fall sports that are, footballs, entering campus right now. Even some men's basketball student athletes will start to have been on campus now and starting to work out. So we'll start to see, and we'll learn a lot from the fall sports. But as of today, now again, stay tuned. It changes. It's very fluid. But as of today, it's just as planned.
You had a 17-year career with Nike with ever-increasing responsibilities, ending up as their Director of Governing Body Relations. What is your primary goal, and what was your responsibility in that position?
I went to Nike after the 1996 Olympics, and I worked in, I think, 3 or 4 different departments. I wanted to stay in sports marketing on that side, whether it was negotiating, whether it was, working with student athletes, working with athletes somehow on the athlete side. So our primary goal at Nike was just negotiating and managing athletes, signing contracts, whether it was with national governing bodies, whether it was with, athletes themselves, whether it was with high school federations, universities. So what sports marketing was responsible for was just negotiating those contracts on behalf of Nike and developing the relationship, managing the relationship, making sure everything's executed and all the products delivered and that everybody's happy. And then the last role that I was in was the Olympic sports marketing role where I oversaw the U.S. Olympic Committee relationship in both Vancouver and London. So just working with the Olympic Committee and all the athletes that at that time, and they still do, but at the time it was really managing like the medal stand ceremony, outfits and all the apparel that the athletes get. And then also just working with signing athletes as well.
You were an integral part of the USA Basketball Administration that managed the original men's dream team at the 1992 Olympics. Do you agree with many people who believe that that is the best basketball team ever assembled?
Yes, I do. I have said that to many people, and I say that on and off the court. They were so professional. They were so it was an incredible camaraderie, and it was fun to watch. I was very young, and I was working very hard, and I wasn't getting much sleep because I was working with the men's team and the women's team. So it wasn't a lot of sleep, but it was just really fun to watch the camaraderie, and just they were all very unselfish, no problems at all. It was, but even on the court, yes, the best talent ever.
Other than the original Dream Team, many high-profile events have your fingerprints on them, including the 1996 Olympic men's basketball team, the Nike efforts at the 2010 and 2012 Olympic Games, in addition to your role as venue manager for the FIBA World Basketball Championship. What were the most important learnings from these experiences that prepared you for your current role?
When you're around, Hall of Famers, Hall of Fame coaches, just the level, it was like it was like traveling with the Beatles. The expectations are much higher. You can't have a bus late, the food can't be cold. They would have never complained, by the way, but you just didn't want to do that because it was the dream team. But I just learned to over communicate. I learned to just think 3 steps ahead of what could go wrong and be prepared and over communicate so it doesn't go wrong. Because when you're around, Hall of Fame, it doesn't matter if it's Hall of Fame basketball coaches or not, or if it's just basketball coaches and players. When I was at USA Basketball or anywhere, they're used to having their staff around them. They're used to having their folks around them, and they feel comfortable with that. And for me, it was, they were like, "Who are you?" And I don't know if I can trust you yet. So you had to perform with results, so that you had to assure them that you knew what you were doing. And you had to, you couldn't mess up if and you had to just work at a very high level. So I think that's probably what it taught me. By the way, treat everybody like that. It's not because it was the dream team. I tell everybody I try and treat everybody like the dream team.
You have received many accolades from distinguished college coaches and administrators when you were named to your current position. One said that you have as much capacity for work as anyone they had ever seen. She is tireless, selfless, and a joy with which to work. Who instilled this work ethic and sense of responsibility in you?
Well, that was definitely my parents. I grew up in a small town in Nebraska. It's a farming community. So as much as a lot of times I like to think March gets to be a little bit crazy, I come from a farming community. Farmers don't ever take days off. So I do think part of my grind and my work ethic comes from the farming community, that they don't take a day off. So whenever I start to feel sorry for myself, I remember my brother-in-law, who never takes a day off. So I think that's where it came from. And again, I just think, a little bit of being a female in this business, you have to do a little more. You have to, give better results. So I think the combination of those.
So you grew up as a sports fan in a small Nebraska town and were a 2-sport student athlete at Nebraska Kearney while earning your bachelor's degree. You also earned an MBA from Butler University in 2005 and volunteered as a high school volleyball and basketball coach while also working for the USA Basketball. How does the fan experience play into your responsibilities?
Well, we oversee, it's one thing, we feel like March Madness is very authentic, and it's a little bit of reality TV, right? I mean, you can't make it up, all the highs and lows. I think we had a opening song a couple years ago, the highs and the lows of March Madness, and the Final Four in Virginia. The last 2 years or 3 years, 2 years ago, was very much the highs and the lows. They got beat the first round, and then they win the following year. And you can't fabricate that. It's a big part of the fan experience in the early rounds is showing the other games on the big screen during timeouts and half times, because they're really wanting to see the other sites if they can't, they want to watch it on the big screen. When it comes to the Final Four, I think it's all about our coaches and the teams that are in it. So we just try and stay authentic, show our Hall of Fame coaches, show authentic basketball, because we really feel that's what the fans look for when they come to the Final Four.
You've also said when hiring personnel, you look for people who think differently than you do. Why do you think that's so important?
Well, I think that was a great lesson that I learned at Nike. I think that in some jobs and in some professions, everybody looks around the table and wants to feel comfortable with people like them. I learned that you want people to do things that you don't have skills in, perhaps, and embrace that, and then empower them and lean on them. And that's really, to me, the best projects I ever worked on at Nike were the ones where we had that type of a group sitting around the table. But I just think that you have to sit and say, what am I missing and what can make us better?
What game or event was the most memorable to you growing up? And what NCAA men's basketball championship tournament or game was the most exciting for you personally?
Growing up would probably be my high school volleyball championship. My sisters and I all played volleyball. I had two sisters, and we played volleyball when I was a sophomore. We won. My sister Jill was a junior, and my sister Judy was a senior. We won the state volleyball championship. So we were the back row in volleyball, and so that was very special to me because we had a phenomenal coach who just retired last year. And she instilled a lot. I learned a lot from her, and I think about her a lot when I manage people or when I coach people. So I think that had a big effect on me because we were the underdogs. We were the ones nobody thought were going to make it. We'd watch teams warm up and we'd be like, oh my goodness. But, we never gave up as a thing, I would say. But I will say just recently, just to see, I was at the game where Virginia got upset. When they were the 1 seed and the 16 seed, UMBC beat them. And then I was at the Final Four when they won. And so I think that's why I love this tournament is, like I said, in 1 year, they went from the lowest of lows to the highest of highs. So that's the most recent memorable to me is this tournament, you just never know.
You have also said that you hate being judged because you're a female in a male sport. How has the judgment changed at all over the years? And is it something that continues to be at the forefront?
I think that I know enough people in the business now. It's probably not as much. I think women are very good event organizers. And so I think that women and people would say, oh, you're the event organizer. And then the more they knew me, they understood, oh, I know officials. I understand the game. I understand coaches. I understand, a lot of the game. And so I think for those who don't know me, maybe so, but I think that I've been in it long enough that people know I've been around a lot of great coaches, a lot of great referees, a lot of great players, a lot of great administrators. So hopefully that's kind of behind me.
Phoenix is the stage for the 2024 Final Four. What were the determining factors that really set Phoenix apart from the other cities who applied to host?
Well, we were there in 2017, and it was a phenomenal event. I will never forget on Saturday morning before the semifinal, looking out the window of the stadium and seeing how many people were at the tip-off tailgate going, oh my goodness. There's a lot of people out there. I think Phoenix just in the preparation, Phoenix knows how to run large events. They run a lot of bowl games. They've run a lot of Super Bowls. They've run a lot of large conventions. So what I saw was just the hospitality in the state. And I just saw that shine through and the can-do attitude. But everybody was so just welcoming and so easy to work with. And it was a great success. And that always helps when it comes back. To come back. But the venue itself, just working with so many large events, I'd say overall, just the history of working with large events.
What is the most rewarding and the most challenging aspects of your role as managing director?
I think the most rewarding it would be seeing the student athletes. I think whenever I watch One Shining Moment and those student athletes, I just say, this is going to be with them for life, every one of them. And that's the most rewarding. That and a lot of the coaches in the profession that I know, and I know that this getting to the Final Four is a goal for life, and that they want to, it's just something that they strive for all their life, and you see all that hard work and the results. I think the challenge is there's so many moving parts, and you want nothing to go wrong, that you can get caught up in the day-to-day more than, okay, where can we go? I think that's very common. Like, instead of strategy 3 to 5 years out, or even 7 to 10 years out of where do we want to take this event, it can be so overwhelming and moving city to city that you kind of work on it on a 12-month basis, when I feel like I wish I was working on it on a 5 to 7 year out basis to say, hey, how are we going to change this event?
Finally, what do you hope your legacy will be?
I think if you ask folks, I would say that I hope that I make people better every day. Rick Majerus, who was a former coach at Utah, was a dear friend of mine. And he was always say to me, how you doing, JoAn? And I go, good. How are you doing, Rick? And he'd say, trying to get better, just trying to get better every day, trying to get my players better, trying to be a better person. And so I try and lead that way, and I try and manage that way. Like, okay, that was great. Now, how do we make it better? So I would hope that if you ask people if they ever worked with me, that they remember perhaps maybe I made them just, a little bit better at something, or work and think about, like moving forward and making something better.
Well, thank you so much for joining us today.
Yes, thank you so much, JoAn. We really appreciate your time and your insight. And for all of you who tuned in today for ASEC Conversations, thank you for joining us. And we'll see you next Sunday at 3 p.m. on ASEC Conversations.